Fantasy football drafts are in full swing on Underdog Fantasy right now, and every time I do one of these drafts, there are some picks that drive me absolutely insane. Starting with Christian McCaffrey. Now I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, I'm not touching Christian McCaffrey. He's injury prone. He's got Achilles tendonitis, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we know about the injury risk, but let me give you the other side of the equation here. The other side of the equation is when this guy stays fully healthy, he legit is a top 2 running back, top 1 scorer in all of fantasy football. It's very rare you find a guy like this early in the second round of your drafts. Sure, you can be scared. You can pass on Christian McCaffrey and take a safer player, which, oh, by the way, there are no safe players in fantasy football. Or you can take the guy who can potentially win you your league with one pick. Scared money don't make money. Don't pass on Christian McCaffrey because you're too scared to draft a potential league winner. But I think you probably should pass on Brock Bowers, who also is going early in the second round. And look, Brock Bowers was great last year. And look, I think Brock Bowers will probably be great again this year. But last year, he was 34th among all non-QBs in points per game. That's not worth an early second round pick. Sure, he's great for a tight end, but that's the problem. He's a tight end. That position does not matter in fantasy football. You're passing up on good running backs, good wide receivers at positions that matter more just to get potentially the number 1 tight end, the number 2 tight end. In order for this pick to work, Brock Bowers is going to have to be 2021 Travis Kelce. And what did the Raiders do this offseason? They drafted a pretty good day 2 wide receiver. They drafted the best running back in the class after having the worst running game in the NFL last year. There's not going to be as much opportunity for Brock Bowers this year. Again, I'm not saying Brock Bowers is going to be a bust. I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think he'll be fine. But he's not worth an early second round pick when you can just get other tight ends later. And I feel the same way about Bucky Irving, who's now a mid-second round pick. This is a guy who was great last year, won championships down the stretch, was highly efficient, 5.4 yards per carry. But efficiency is one of the least sticky metrics year over year. If that drops to, say, 4.5 yards per carry, which is still pretty good by NFL standards, you're talking about 200 plus less yards on the season. Not to mention new offensive coordinator, Rachaad White, still there as the pass catching back. Again, I don't think Bucky Irving is going to be a bust. I don't think you're going to look back and say, why did I draft Bucky Irving? He's not going to be this year's Travis Etienne, but not worth a mid-second, especially when he oftentimes goes over proven elite workhorse running backs like Josh Jacobs, Kyren Williams, sometimes even Jonathan Taylor. Just give me those other guys. Bucky Irving in the middle of the third round, fine. But middle second, nah, that's way too soon. And then there's Jalen Hurts, barely going inside the top 50 players, drafted as a QB4. Over the last 4 years, this guy has averaged over 21 fantasy points per game. He's had double-digit rushing touchdowns each of the last 4 seasons. And it doesn't sound like the tush push is going to get banned this year. So he's probably going to get double-digit rushing touchdowns once again. Jalen Hurts is this year's elite discount QB1, and I have problems not pulling the trigger on this guy when he's there late 4th, early 5th round of my fantasy drafts. Then there's Jordan Addison, currently going pick 60, wide receiver 32. Over his first 2 seasons, he's been the wide receiver 30 and the wide receiver 22 in points per game. He is the perfect spike week wide receiver 3 in fantasy football because that's what he gives you, spike weeks. And he's had 2 different quarterbacks each of his first 2 years, and he's been fine with both. And I think he'll be fine again with J.J. McCarthy. I feel like he's one of these guys that's just always forgotten in drafts, but he gives you that spike week upside you definitely want, especially in these underdog drafts. And if you're ready to start getting your fantasy drafts on, you need to check out Underdog Fantasy right now. They have drafts for as little as $3 per draft, and of course their flagship Best Ball Mania 6 draft, where they're going to make multiple millionaires in 2025. And also take advantage of this great offer from Underdog Fantasy, because if you join now using promo code ENDGAME, you're going to get a free customer pick that you can use right away, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash that you can use to start drafting and winning money right now. And then I got to talk about Alvin Kamara, pick 62, RB21. Look, I keep waiting for this guy to fall off a cliff. And when it comes to running the football, yeah, he's hit the cliff. The last 4 years, he's been terrible running the football. But it doesn't matter because he's a pass-catching monster. And guess what? It sounds like it's going to be rookie Tyler Shough under center, so he's probably going to catch a bazillion passes again. And there's no competition here. Kendre Miller, this guy can barely even get on the field. Devin Neal, I like him, but is he really a threat to Alvin Kamara? It's probably going to be another season where Alvin Kamara is getting the bulk of the work, catching a ton of passes, and once again being a value in fantasy football drafts. So once again in 2025, take that Kamara discount. But please, don't take what you think is the Travis Kelce discount. Pick 100, tight end 7. What are we doing here? This guy was horrible last year. Statistically, the worst season of his entire career, including his rookie year. This guy doesn't care about football anymore. Let's be real. He looked terrible last year. He looked slow. He looked out of shape. That's not going to change this year. And not to mention, last year, they had no wide receivers. Everybody was hurt except Xavier Worthy, and he still sucked. Why is he going to be good this year? Hollywood Brown back, Xavier Worthy back, Rashee Rice coming back at some point. They drafted Jalen Royals. This guy is not good anymore. You're only drafting his name, not production at this point. And the same could be said for Travis Etienne, pick 118, running back 37. I get it. This is like almost risk-free at this point, but really, it's not, because you don't have to take a guy just because he's on the board. This guy wouldn't even be worth this pick last year if you drafted him. And they went out and drafted rookie Bashal Tutin, who I really like as a change of pace pass catching back, which, by the way, was only Etienne's role last year. He got no early down run when Tank Bigsby was healthy. They're trying to trade this guy, but really, where could this guy get traded to that's a boost other than maybe Dallas? That's it. There's not a lot of running back needy teams out there anymore, so I don't even care that Etienne is still on the board here. Not to mention, he goes ahead of Tutin, who I'd rather just draft instead. I didn't draft Etienne last year. I didn't regret it. I'm not drafting him this year. I bet I don't regret it either. And then back on the value trains with CJ Stroud, pick 131, QB 18. I know, he was a bust last year, but that was kind of easy to see. People were a little too hyped up on CJ Stroud, not to mention he lost all his passing game weapons. Well, they got him more passing game weapons this year. They drafted 2 rookie wide receivers. They still have Nico Collins. I know the offensive line, needs some work still, but what are we doing here? QB 18, he's your QB 2 in these drafts. He's still going to give you plenty of spike weeks as your QB 2 in these drafts. I think the pendulum has swung way too far the other way. People way overreacting to how bad he was last year. Sure, he's not going to be a top 5 QB, but he's certainly going to be better than a top 18 QB. And then finally, Dalton Kincaid, pick 136, tight end 15. Again, the pendulum has swung way too far. Last year, we thought this is it. He's going to be a target monster. He's going to have a breakout season, and he really didn't. But what did the Bills do on offense this year? Nothing. I mean, they did draft a tight end, but it was like in round 6. No threat here. They literally took defense with every pick in the NFL draft. And you look at Kincaid last year, the opportunity was actually there. He had the 8th highest target share among all tight ends and the 7th highest target rate among all tight ends. He was also 6th among all tight ends in air yard share in his own offense. And again, there's not much here on offense to compete with. Dalton Kincaid can definitely bounce back. And again, you're drafting him as the tight end 15. This guy gives you a top 10, top 8, top 5 tight end season. That is going to be a steal, and you got to make this pick. And you also got to follow us all off season for all the winning content you need for your fantasy football drafts. Find all the videos you need to win in this playlist right here.